super exciting about the lineup because we're here to talk about just like the new film lineups for each of yours. So, Jonathan, you would do the Escape from Tribeca. So, what it and Matt, you programmed the midnight section. But Jonathan, what is Escape from Tribeca? Can you explain to me what that is?
Yeah, and Matt also programs at Escape.
Okay.
Just to be clear, he
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
Jonathan and I do Escape, and then I'm part of the group that does Midnight. So I can speak
Okay.
to the
Cool.
Midnight films for
Okay.
for here too. So I can do both,
Sweet.
but Jonathan can take Escape right now.
Hell yeah.
yeah, Escape was created because Tribeca, an incredible sort of cultural institution in New York, has not gone out of its way to until now to sort of bring the fans, the horror and genre fans, the real fanboys and girls like us who know who Jonathan Lipnicki is, uh, in under their umbrella, and bring the movies and the experiences that we want, so that not every film is a documentary about a Ukrainian artist or wonderful films that Tribeca is known for. We want to show the less wonderful, fantastic films that Tribeca is not known for, and bring that fan group into the Tribeca experience.
And
So,
how do you
so
differentiate this from Midnight to you? Like, what's like the kind of delineation between the two groups for y'all as
Yeah.
programmers?
Tribeca's had Midnight forever. So Midnight is generally is a little bit of horror, sci-fi, action, comedy, but it sort of the kind of tone it tends to fall into as a combination of just what's out there and sort of the submissions we get. It's a lot of like films I love, but sort of more slow burn, more cerebral, kind of psychological, that sort of lane. And there'll be a comedy here and there. There'll be something a little bit more energetic, but we for Escape the idea of Escape is to find stuff that's much more of like audience crowd pleasing, so like crazier or more extreme or wilder or
visceral is the
weirder.
word that I like.
What's the
More visceral
Yeah,
movie making, more visceral movie going experience, or immersive experiences. You know,
yeah. And we also, so we try to last year was our first year doing it. This year is obviously the second year, but the word I was using last year was eventizing, sort of like, because I go to Fantastic Fest in Toronto, and like, so when you go to Midnight Madness, there's an experience when you're in the theater. It's you leave like on a high.
Oh
There's
yeah.
like a so we want to bring that kind of energy to Tribeca, with a section that is like dedicated specifically to that, where we can celebrate kind of crazier, fun old movies, find the new films that maybe in the past would have trouble getting into Tribeca for whatever different reasons. Maybe they didn't fit the sort of they would just they would be maybe a little bit too crazy or too weirder, and they would sort of it'd be harder to kind of find them in the sort of puzzle piece form of putting a not only Midnight but the entire festival together. Now Escape gives those films a place to live, and it kind of opens up Tribeca's genre film sensibilities into kind of everything. So now people who have a maybe a sort of more experimental, lo-fi, weirder film, they might be more excited, or they might be more inspired to submit it to Tribeca, or think that, oh, Tribeca could be an option for this film, as opposed to maybe the past they weren't sure if Tribeca would show this, because they would look at Tribeca's history of midnight and genre films and maybe see, Tribeca had Let the Right One In. It had a lot of great films, but they might have something that's a little bit kind of weirder that maybe ends up at Fantasia or something in the past. Now it has a home at Tribeca to so it's more playful. It's just kind of, it gives the festival kind of, it opens its wings a little bit and gives it a place where the people that go to Fantastic Fest and Beyond Fest and Comic Con, they have a home at Tribeca now, essentially.
yeah,
Well, you
there's
have
nothing
you.
like this. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say you have Kill, which I didn't get to see at Fantastic Fest, but I'm so
Yeah,
excited to see. So I'm so glad you're bringing it to Tribeca because I've heard
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
but incredible
exactly.
things about what that movie
I
is.
actually saw it at Fantastic Fest. That's where I saw
Okay,
it, and it was like one of the better audience crowd experiences I've seen in a while. It's
that's
just a
what I've
movie that,
heard.
yeah, if you see it with a crowd, nobody's gonna sit still. It's very much like The Raid and The Raid Redemption and that kind of level, like the Timo Tadjanto movies on Netflix, like that real, like you can't sit, you have to get like charged up and energized and clapping and like, oh, wincing, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm so excited. And then Jonathan, I'm so sorry I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
No, what I was saying is that there's nothing like this in New York for whatever reason.
Really? That's so
In
weird.
no, between October and January, there's a bunch of things, including Matt's Brooklyn Horror Festival. and there's Comic-Con in October, and there's the New York Horror Film Festival in January. But from January until October, there is Escape from Tribeca in June to service the fans and to bring this kind of stuff to the city. So we're really proud to be a platform that can do that. And in June, we have a really, I like pinch myself. I was talking to my friends the other night. I'm like, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have, and it's just like a dream come true for a fanboy since I was 8 to be able to say that we're bringing the stuff that we're bringing to New York City is genuinely thrilling.
That's so cool. What a cool job, y'all. I mean, I
Yeah,
obviously know the difficulties and the challenges of it, but it's got to be, it's cool to be able to bring that to people and bring
it's
that kind of
incredibly
cinema.
cool, and to talk to folks like you and the readers or the the folks that go on the platform, which we look at every day. So I'm thrilled to be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of for me too. Like I've been going to Fantastic Fest is like my like beacon of like the festival I love going to, and I've been going since 2012. And as we were putting this lineup together this year, including the stuff that we can't really talk about right now, but as you'll see in the coming weeks, it really started. It kind of felt like we put together like a sort of mini genre festival within Tribeca. So if you look at like the three films we could talk about now kind of fall into. So when you go to like Fantastic Fest or Beyond Fest, there's kind of different lanes if you think about it. So there's like the films that come from Toronto or Venice or Cannes that are like the buzzy sort of films everybody wants to see. So that for us, that's kill essentially, right? Then you have the sort of big fun world premieres, a lot of fun horror movies that you'll go see in like the 11 o'clock or midnight slot at Fantastic Fest, or the sort of bigger world premiere, fun, splashy things like that. That's All My Friends Are Dead for Escape, right? That's our film in that lane. And then if you're at a festival like that and you go to like a 2 p.m. slot at Fantastic Fest where there's that sort of smaller, weirder movie that you kind of take a chance on that you don't know a lot
slot,
about.
man. The best
Yeah,
slot.
and then you leave the festival. A lot of times, that's your favorite movie that you're talking about with your friends. For us, that kind of discovery film is Sheila Blossoms More. So I think like
I've never heard of it.
of,
I'm so excited to see this. I'd never heard of it,
You
and I
will
love
you will
like
have in
Greek.
mind, but do you like Bava, or it's like if Mario
Oh yeah.
Bava or Fulci took The Fly and a lot of peyote and made a movie. That might be what this movie is, right? Is that a fair description?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a cool. The filmmaker's cool. This guy Giannis Vaslemis, he had a film. I keep bringing up Fantastic just because it's sort of kind of everything sort of is going in that direction. But he had his debut film was called Norway back in 2014. It was this like dancing vampire movie that was kind of like a weird breakout of Fantastic Fest that
You must
year.
know it. It's a vampire.
Yeah, it's
No,
like a
I'm a terrible
Greek.
vampire fan.
Yeah,
Jonathan
it got a very.
Lipnicki is not in this one, but he would like it.
I think you can find it. It's called Norway. It might be streaming somewhere. It's kind of hard, a little bit obscure, but it's this like dancing guy, like vampire, who, like has to dance to stay alive, and it's just like kind of really fun, weird movie.
I found
So
it. Okay, hell
yeah. So that, and he's been composing stuff for years. He also had a segment in the Field Guide to Evil, that anthology that came out a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
So he's a really cool, interesting sort of filmmaker that's been in that sort of genre world. That's looking to he's ready to kind of reintroduce himself, and this is the first feature he's made in 10 years actually. So yeah, for a certain group of people that love that kind of stuff, they're going to see his name and be like, oh wow, this guy's got a new feature, and then it delivers and then some on what I think people want from this guy.
See, what I love is the way that the energy of a conversation like this happens with fans like us. Okay, this is what does not happen enough, and outside of this kind of cadre, this circle of horror and genre super fans. But the energy that we have, the kindness, the goodness of the fans is what really inspires me always. And trying to bring this energy, literally what's happening right now, as you're like, oh my God, oh yeah, that sounds so, oh, I found it. That's so cool, But this is true. This is like where we're at and have been since we were little kids. Not every Tribeca attendee is like this, and trying to show them how wonderful horror fans and horror movies and genre movies are, and the people who love them bring this exact energy into Tribeca is really what we're trying to do.
And I feel like you're doing a lot of work maybe in a festival that has, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that has a certain kind of reputation, and showing that horror deserves to be a part of that conversation in a festival with such a reputation. I like that. I love that. I feel like you're trying to you're legitimizing horror in a way with this festival. And I love that
Yeah, I mean,
because
you're
not that
absolutely
I think
right.
horror needs to be legitimized, but I think for a lot of people, I'm sure you guys have seen this before, that horror needs to be legitimized as something worthy. And that's
You
frustrating as a
know,
genre
it's
fan. So it's
interesting,
cool to hear what you
and
guys are
I and
doing.
I don't want to wade into sticky political waters, but horror, which has always been legitimate, we all know it, right? We all know the value and the quality of horror, even though some of the quality is that it's quote bad or base or working class or all of those things that horror and genre have gotten whacked with by the intelligentsia. The truth is that they are the lifeblood of movies, always have been. They're called movies. They're not called thinkies. They're not called feelies. Do you know what I mean? They're movies. I mean, honestly. And that I'm even ashamed to say that horror needs to be legitimized because it only needs to be legitimized by the folks who were snobs anyway. And I don't even really need to. It's almost like a song and a dance. We got to present it to them and let them see what they've been missing. Yes, that's part of it. That's true. That's how we were able to sneak into the festival by being able to say, these are really legitimate. These are fantastic movies. But for those of us who love them, we don't need those folks. We just want to fucking watch the great movies and see kill. And so what we're balancing is filling the theater with the fans like us and making sure enough of those folks come in to say, wow, it's really fun to scream and shout at a movie and not just sit there and say, yes, the anatomy of a potato, yes, a love story between two very sad, traumatized people on a park bench, and I love those movies too, right? If they're good, a good movie's a good movie, but a bad movie is a great movie.
Yeah, and it's interesting
Oh
too if
yeah.
you look at the kind of the last couple of years, the momentum is obviously in sort of horror and the genre film world's favor in terms of just look at everything that's getting greenlit by studios, all the kind of filmmakers that come out of festivals are the guys that are doing the men and women and the filmmakers that are doing the coming out of midnight sections or genre film uh makers. But also like so a couple years ago, 2022, we for midnight for Tribeca, we had Michelle Garza Cervera's Wasera, which but it won like the two or the three top prizes in the festival, which is like the first
You
time
had the
that
world
it had.
premiere of Sarah, didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Oh,
and it won
so
the
Thanks,
world,
Matt Barone.
and it like yeah, and it won the top Tribeca prizes, and for like a midnight film, that was like a big whoa. This is like so.
yeah.
It kind of signaled that the sort of the tide of shifting in a way that like the sort of like as Jonathan called them, the intelligentsia, or the kind of people that may not have gravitated towards this stuff were starting to pay attention to it. Even like Titan winning in Cannes, that film Nanny won Sundance. Like there's
Yeah.
these films are kind of winning at these festivals and really kind of taking that prestige that we've always known should have been happening for a long time, but it's actually happening now. So like we're coming at a time that's like really really able to capitalize on that and jump into that, and it's exciting. It feels like for us fans that have been loving this stuff forever, and like for I've been programming for a long time. Jonathan's been working in genre films for a long time. For us to be able to like lead the charge for Tribeca in this way at this time, it's just this, it's sort of like really fulfilling and feels like, it's been a long time coming.
The two things. One is just look at what's working at the box office. What once upon a time, box office meant something, right? It's that people want to go out to have a group experience. That's something that horror and genre has always done. Go out to the movie and let's meet your friends and scream together and have a great time together. And whether it's Civil War, which is a thriller, it's a very exciting movie, or Kung Fu Panda, or and then the real horror movies, that there's a horror movie a week now, more. People know that horror, as they have always known, is a great place for talent to start because you can show your filmmaking chops, you can get thematically deep very, very quickly, and people have an exciting time. If you're talented, your talent will show and people will appreciate it. I mean, that's always been my mantra as a filmmaker and talking to folks about it. And having a place where people can go and have a group experience that is as exciting as what Kill is going to be in a theater is what gets people out of the house. That's what we want to do. That's what a festival is. Let's all have a party and let's celebrate. And you'll see some of the stuff. I hope we get to talk to you about the stuff that's coming up, the classic films that we're showing and the events that we're putting together. You'll see that this is all based around getting people out in one place to celebrate movies, genre, and each other, being so that we can talk. I mean, there's nothing, we could talk for hours, right? We can, so what's your favorite movie? And what's the Jonathan Lipnicki? And wasn't he in this? And then we all get in crazy. Oh, fuck, what was the name of the thing that so-and-so was in, right? That's what we do. Yeah.
And just quickly before we wrap up, Matt, with the midnight section, is there anything in particular you're really excited for people to see? I mean, there's a really cool spread, like there's a Nigerian film, and I feel like we don't see a lot of African genre films, so it's cool to see more coming out of there. And then we obviously have the new film from the Goodnight Mommy team / the Lodge team. So just wanted to hear a little bit more about the midnight lineup before we wrap up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you said, the midnight section this year is very kind of well-rounded, which is exciting to me. The Weekend is a Nigerian film. Yeah, I mean, when you're programming genre sections and genre festivals, even when I do Brooklyn Horror, you're always looking for you're hoping to get films from sort of countries and regions that don't really, you don't really get to see often, because it brings a new perspective and a sort of new energy to it. And this year, this film from Nigeria, it's cool because it has the structure of something like like a Get Out, or so it's basically this woman is engaged to her fiance and goes home to meet her fiance's parents. So it has that classic structure of like going to meet the parents, but then it obviously it's a horror film and it deviates into a pretty crazy fucked up direction, but it does it with a lot of energy and a lot of fun, but it also does it in ways that feel very specific to the filmmaker's Nigerian roots, so it feels like a film that could only be made in Nigeria, taking a template that's used in the States and used everywhere. So it has that kind of fun.
That's my favorite when you see like the Western
you'll
stuff.
You'll recognize all the tropes, but then you'll see how they're being used in a sort of new, fresh way, which is exciting. You brought up The Devil's Bath by the Goodnight Mommy filmmakers. I mean, I won't say too much about it because but I think it's their best film. It's probably one of my best things I've seen all year. It takes bleak to like a new level of bleak. You know what I mean? Like those guys have always been bleak. Those two are bleak already. This is like they're like challenging themselves to be even bleaker.
Oh no, I'm so excited.
Like when you're watching it and you figure out what the kind of like hook of it is, or what the sort of like narrative driving force is, you're like, this is like the darkest but almost most brilliant kind of like steeped in religion kind of idea. It's really, I love that movie. But I won't say too much about it. But yeah, another film that's exciting that people I think are going to be excited about is, if you know Calvin Reeder, the filmmaker. He did these films, The Oregonian, The Rambler. He's got a kind of a following in the sort of really indie kind of weirder genre film world. He was also in the first VHS. He's like one of the main guys in the wraparound segment. So he's part of that whole sort of crew of filmmakers. His film's called The A-Frame, and and the A-Frame is a bit lighter, not lighter, but it's more kind of playful and fun. This guy creates this machine that sort of wants to do like interdimensional travel, but it actually like by accident creates a cure for cancer. So he starts bringing in people that like have cancer to help them out. But obviously it goes into sort of not obviously, but it goes into kind of like body horror Cronenberg direction because the machine is not really functional, So it's fun in that way. I think people are going to dig that. One that I'm really excited about that I personally love is a film called The Desert. It's by this director named Joshua Erkman, who's had some shorts that have played Brooklyn Horror, Fantastic Fest, Beyond Fest. He's made a few shorts, but this is his feature debut, and it's a neo noir that goes into horror directions, and it has a really interesting structure. It's one of those films that like read very little about and kind of let it take you in sort of journey it's going to take you on. But it's about a guy who's a photographer. He's going on this road trip, trying to revitalize his photography career, and he stops at a hotel, and in that hotel there's this sort of really kind of crazy, like drugged out, hard drinking couple that invite him into their room to party with them. And by doing that, he basically, everything just goes to hell, and it just becomes this real kind of crazy horror noir thing that I think is really strong, kind of like haunting and really surprising. And it's a first time filmmaker. It feels like a discovery. That's like a guy that's going to be doing a lot of really cool things in the future. So that's a really exciting one. And then there's also, what else is in the section? So there's Mars, which is completely different from all of this. It's an animated comedy
So cool.
co-written and including the voice acting of Zach Kreger, the Barbarian filmmaker. So it's from
Yeah.
the Whitest Kids You Know, that whole sort of comedy troupe that he comes from. It's like that
Oh
crew.
yeah.
Yeah, making a animated comedy about this kind of like slacker dude who's engaged to get married, but he wins this contest where you can like a billionaire is sending people to Mars so they can like spend time on Mars, and he sort of ditches his fiance and goes on this thing, and the whole trip becomes kind of a shit show of like like it's just a complete disaster, and then it sort of becomes a bunch of like weird people stuck on this trip to Mars together, and has a kind of South Park sort of like raunchy R-rated animated comedy energy to it.
Hell yeah.
And am I missing anything in this section? I think Devil's Bath,
Beacon, if you wanted to talk
Beacon. Sure,
about
that's the last one.
Beacon.
Yeah, that's another first time filmmaker, Roxy Shee, and that's very much this is sort of a two hander about this girl who's on this kind of personal like, sailing trip. She gets shipwrecked on an island with a lighthouse. The guy who lives in the lighthouse alone is played by Damian Bashir, and he brings her in and sort of becomes this kind of like, is he a father figure? Is he trustworthy? Is there something off about him? And it's sort of her stuck in this lighthouse with this guy who might be a little bit cuckoo and crazy, and it kind of goes into directions of like what's really going on with him, and sort of kind of like mermaid imagery plays into it. It becomes a little bit supernatural. Yeah, so that's the whole section. So as you can see,
Cool.
Midnight definitely has a kind of well-rounded nature to it, and so paired with Escape, I feel like Tribeca is in terms of the genre film space this year is really exciting, and I think people are going to find a lot of stuff they're going to love. I hope.